It's wonderful to have so many members joining us today. They're elected representatives and heads of industry in attendance. I've seen, I think, 3 of my predecessors last night, and I mean, what a night was that. So special mention to Ian Donges, Duncan Fraser, Brent Finlay. I seriously had big shoes to fill when I came into the role, and it's great to see them here today. And I hope I haven't missed a sneaky president, a sneaky past president who might be in the room as well. I echo CEO Tony Ma's earlier thanks of our partners and particularly our platinum sponsor, Nutrien Ag Solutions, who we work with now on so many projects. A special welcome to Global CEO Ken Seitz, who has made the trip down under from Canada with his team, and we look forward to hearing from him shortly. Also want to acknowledge the very hard-working Minister for Agriculture, David Littleproud, who, David, you have the whole government, you're representing the whole government here today, so anything anybody wants, David is here for a short period of time. We're going to hear from him a little bit later, but he's been given, he is the man, okay? So today, he is the man. It's really great to have the Minister with us, and we are looking forward to hearing from him shortly as well. I'm not sure that we're going to hear any of those sorts of announcements, but anyway, it's certainly good to have you with us, Minister. Whilst we were disappointed that this time the Prime Minister wasn't able to join us in person, he absolutely has before, through Minister Littleproud, I extend my gratitude to the PM for making time to provide the video message to our delegates. Just last week, as he said, Tony and I sat down with him in Canberra. We have met with him regularly over his term to table exactly what agriculture and regional Australia expects from the 47th Parliament. We reflected on that last NFF conference way back in 2018, where the PM officially backed our $100 billion vision and also promised us an ag visa. A little bit more on this later. Ladies and gentlemen, who would have thought that the dates on which the NFF was finally able to host our national conference would land on the cusp of a federal election campaign? There could not be better timing, I say. Bring it on. The importance of this election for agriculture and the bush cannot be understated. It comes on the heels of one of the strangest, most turbulent and uncertain times in our nation's history. Like many nations, COVID has shaken Australia to its absolute core. It's exposed our vulnerabilities and our fragilities. But our farmers have been the glue, keeping supermarket shelves stacked, creating jobs, keeping the blood flowing in an economy, and the food, of course, and the fibre, which has been on life support. All the while recovering from drought, from bushfires, battling mice, dust storms, floods, locusts. It's been epic, hasn't it? And of course, it still is for so many people in the northeast corner of New South Wales and southeast Queensland, still dealing with the devastating floods. Against all these odds, agriculture is charting a course of growth. There is buoyancy and optimism around our industry. It's an exciting industry to be in, closing in ever so quickly on that $100 billion light on the hill. There's wind in our sails. There is momentum. And so what the farm sector and regional Australia needs right now is bold, progressive, and most importantly, strategic investment and policy to supercharge this momentum. It's our time to thrive. It's these words, time to thrive, that are at the centre of the NFF's calls to arms this election. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am really pleased to launch the NFF's 2022 federal election priorities. We've developed a simple, common sense 5-priority plan. You can read about it more in the little booklet that's in your satchel. And we're calling on all parties standing at this election to back these priorities in. I'll talk about them a little bit here. Number 1 is the plan for smart regional growth. Thousands upon thousands of Australians continue to see the potential of life outside the city boundaries. And post-COVID, we've seen an absolutely unprecedented wave of people looking to invest, to live and to work in our regional areas. Yet so many of our areas are just not equipped to handle this rush. And regional Australia remains largely without an overarching plan or an investment commitment, a locally driven but coordinated action supported by all three tiers of government to guarantee and guide sustainable growth. Successive governments have failed to capture the benefits of regionalisation, so confidently started by our early explorers and our ancestors. And unfortunately, development has, in most recent decades, largely depended on ad hoc, piecemeal, often electorally motivated splashes of cash to deal with single issues instead of an overarching, coordinated and strategic plan. Instead of working together, we only too often see each level of government running its own agenda. And unfortunately, sometimes they're even in open rebellion against each other, as we saw during COVID. While farmers bat way above their average in terms of contribution to the GDP, their home regions and services that underpin them, the schools, the hospitals, the telecoms, the infrastructure, and some of the cultural amenity are sometimes, it seems, getting nothing more than lip service from government. In many areas, these services are actually declining instead of building and improving as the population grows and the population pressures grow. Although we regional dwellers hate to talk about these things, as we love where we live, it's just way too important to ignore, particularly if we want change. Despite 30% of Australia's population living in regional and rural Australia, and these people generating 40% of Australia's economic activity, batting way above our weight, less than 30% of the infrastructure spend is for the benefit of regional communities. As an example, the 2021 Infrastructure Australia priority list did not identify or add one single high priority project that could be categorised as having benefit to regional Australia. We can't ignore the facts and data, and unfortunately the data says that rural Australians have a lower life expectancy and higher mortality rates due to substandard access to health services. Everybody, it seems, has their own scary near-miss health story. Recent research by the NFF in key marginal regional seats also confirms the availability and affordability of housing, also weighing heavily on the mind of regional Australians. The NFF's regional precincts proposal suggests 20 regions that would benefit from smart planning to secure their bright futures while mitigating the downsides of population growth. I'm sure there are at least 20 more, and probably 20 more after that. Regionalisation can't be about picking up the congestion, the pollution, and some of the affordability headaches of our major cities and just dropping them into our regions. It can't be about more unplanned urban sprawl or developments on some of our best farmland or in areas that, due to environmental factors, are simply unsuitable for development. It has to be about preserving the fantastic lifestyle on offer in the country, while bringing new industries, jobs and services closer to the communities that we as farmers call home. It has to be about front-ending sensible and sustainable development frameworks, planned and driven by local communities and supported by necessary data and expertise to drive such developments in conjunction with industry. This election, we want all parties to commit to at least $1.4 billion in seed funding from the federal government to kickstart the process. Pick the 20 regions and let's get on with it. Although the federal government can't do it alone, we've put the onus on National Cabinet to work with local government on a holistic plan and development framework that all three tiers of government must commit to, building new industries and business opportunities and the services and amenities needed to support these endeavours. We have an unashamed focus on agriculture. The NFF's members continue to call for a renaissance of local food and fibre manufacturing. In the past, this just has not been feasible. But the coming online of renewable energy sources, technology and modern manufacturing processes has absolutely changed the game. But we must act now to bolster our local capability for the manufacturing of inputs like urea. It makes sense for this development to be in regional Australia. Pillar number 2, partner for a healthier environment. An increased global focus on sustainability is both a challenge and an opportunity for farmers. More and more international markets want to know that world-class food and fibre has also been produced sustainably. Sustainability is also being linked to access to finance. The NFF's members have long seen this coming, and we've been working with the federal government on a framework to value farmers' natural capital. This election, we're calling for a serious commitment to bring this framework to life, with $2 billion in seed funding from the federal government in a voluntary scheme to allow farmers to trade their biodiversity values and create a pathway to both reliably measure and report on biodiversity. Farmers can then use this knowledge to participate in emerging markets. Farmers manage 53% of the Australian landscape. A framework to value that biodiversity represents a transformation in the intersection between ag production and the environment. For the very first time, a carrot rather than a stick. It will provide farmers with another string to their bow. Each season, farmers make choices about crop plantings and livestock numbers. The opportunity to trade their biodiversity values provides a further and longer-term choice that they can draw upon whenever it might suit their farm business. These so-called new commodities will support greater diversity of income, lead to more resilient farm businesses in the face of challenges such as drought, and empower Australian agriculture to further demonstrate its sustainability credentials. A farmer who can value the natural capital of their property can not only participate in biodiversity markets, but potentially access better finance terms. The NFF's 2030 roadmap includes a goal for, by 2030, 5% of farmers' income to come from ecosystem service payments. They could be private or public sector payments or even green bonds. Pillar number 3, connecting every Australian. Unfortunately, the connectivity drought continues in the bush. A recent survey by the NFF found a significant number of respondents reported the reliability of communications had declined in the past 12 months. 50% of respondents said the reliability of their mobile network coverage had declined in the past year, and 40% said their internet coverage had also become less reliable. More than 80% of survey respondents reported ongoing reliability issues with their landline. Through the relentless advocacy of the NFF-led RRCC, there have been advancements in bush communications, but the improvements have simply not caught up with the demand. Connectivity is intrinsic to almost all parts of Australian lives, be it work, education, lifestyle, health and safety, particularly also in farming. It's a big problem that needs an equally big investment to solve. Most of our urban cousins wouldn't know what it's like to search for a mobile phone signal by scaling a silo or driving up the closest hill, or the need to wait for next month's data to refresh before downloading a document. But this is the daily reality for many country Australians. The NFF's members are calling for a $5 billion Rural Telecommunications Future Fund to provide certainty for regional communities that the ad hoc funding announcements and uncertainty will end. A dedicated fund with independent strategic oversight by regional representatives who genuinely understand these challenges, with the dollars behind them to harness the newest technologies and strategically create meaningful change over a number of years and varying funding and electoral cycles. The data drought must end. Number 4, secure Australia's farm workforce. No industry within the ag sector has been untouched by the labour crisis. Horticulture, shearing, dairy, top-end cattle station, grain farms, you name it. The shortage was bad before COVID, but COVID border closures made the situation absolutely dire. It's a problem that definitely needs a multi-pronged approach. In September, the NFF was buoyed when, after 5 years of advocacy and a number of false starts, including a commitment by the PM at our last conference, the government introduced an ag visa. We were told it would be in place by December, but it's March, and as yet, still no ag visa workers on the ground. We were very excited last week, as the PM said, to have our very first partner country, Vietnam, sign up, and of course we hope that there will be many more. But it's now obvious that getting meaningful numbers of boots on the ground will take some time. Whilst we thank the department, particularly Minister Littleproud for his hard work, and Minister Payne for getting this one over the line, it's obvious that this task requires serious commitment and a whole-of-government approach. We're asking all parties to set a target of 10 partner countries for the ag visa for their first term in office. Our industry also continues to be tarnished by media reports of workers being underpaid and mistreated. The NFF never steps back from our position that farmers who mistreat workers have no place in our industry. The NFF's call for an introduction of a national labour licensing scheme has unfortunately so far fallen on deaf ears. We think streamlining different state arrangements into a single national scheme is an obvious way to better protect workers, and whilst obviously the states have a role to play here too, the federal government needs to be committed to make this happen. The NFF's members are also pleased to be nurturing our next generation of farm workers by leading the federal government Ag Career Start initiative, creating a new generation of young ambassadors for our industry through a national gap year program. Whoever forms Australia's next government needs to embrace this multi-pronged approach, tackling exploitation, creating pathways for Australians, and continuing to welcome overseas workers through dedicated pathways that keep them safe. The last pillar, give farmers a fair go. Research by the NFF shows Australians support a better deal for farmers when it comes to their dealings through the supply chain. Unfortunately, competition laws continue to prove impotent in protecting farmers against unfair and punitive contract terms. Simple changes to competition laws, including strengthening unfair contract prohibitions, considering mandatory codes of conduct for all agricultural commodities, and clarifying unconscionable conduct would all help level the playing field for farmers. And in addition, we're calling for the introduction of a perishable agricultural goods advocate, sitting independent from the ACCC, to advise on policies which would enhance fairness for growers and also investigate potential breaches of competition laws. Before I conclude, I'd like to convey a very important message. I'm proud to be a New South Wales Mentally Healthy Workplace Ambassador. It's so important that we are aware of the signs of poor mental health in ourselves, in our workers, in our families, and all those people around us. We all have a responsibility to take care of each other, whether that's at home or at work. As we know, farming and rural life, whilst idyllic at times, comes with its own set of challenges. The New South Wales Government's Mentally Healthy program has some really helpful resources that employers and farmers can utilise to help themselves and support their team in maintaining positive mental health. At the national level, Farm Safe Australia too has mental health and wellbeing as a key pillar in their strategy, and is today announcing a new key partnership, particularly aimed at young people dealing with suicide. Information is in your satchel. Please check it out, and of course, keep looking after yourselves and each other. With that, the NFF's Time to Thrive campaign is officially launched. I hope you'll join with us in sharing our campaign online and with candidates, and doing your part to ensure that farmers and regional Australians have a voice, have a big voice, throughout April and May and the period of this election. The NFF has written to all the main parties seeking their response to our election wish list. We will publish responses on the NFF's policy voting guide about 2 weeks before polling day, and there's a standalone website, www.timetothrive.com.au. And save the date. The NFF will co-host an Ag Leaders debate with Minister David Littleproud and Shadow Ag Minister Julie Collins in a televised debate at the National Press Club on Tuesday the 19th of April. We'd love it if you could join us at this or one of the many events that we'll be taking part in online and around the country with members over the campaign period. Ladies and gentlemen, get strapped in for an insightful and, I hope, inspiring 2 days. I'm really looking forward to it, and let's get into it. Thanks so much, everyone.